Okay, guys, hello. So, today we are going to be moving into our first concrete story of the Odyssey. We're going to be picking up with this story called the Cyclops, but I do want us to make sure that we're on the same page before we start this. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a part one video of the Cyclops. We might be splitting this up, but again, it depends on how much we get through in this video. Okay, first things first, please make sure you complete the warm-up number 3 in Google Classroom. Remember, you have one of these every single day. You need to answer and complete sentences in order to receive credit, like always. So please make sure you are doing that. Today is Friday, so I will be putting in a grade into Power School. It'll be a classwork grade for warm-ups 1 through 3. So if you didn't complete one, you lose that point. You lose those points, you lose that credit. So please make sure that you are completing those before I put that grade in on Friday. Okay, so where are we leading up to the story of the Cyclops? Remember, I talked to you yesterday about the structure of the Odyssey. You should have watched that video. If you did not, please watch that video. And hopefully it makes this whole story make a little bit more sense. Remember Odysseus, we find him on Calypso's island, and then he washes up. Poseidon makes him shipwreck on the court of the Phaeacians, where he is going to be telling the story of what happened to him throughout his journey back from Troy. So he sits everyone down. He says, okay, guys, I'm going to tell you a story. You're going to listen. You're going to be an attentive audience. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened to me. So that's what he's going to do to this court of the Phaeacians. Everyone is an attentive audience. They are listening to his story, just like we are now going to participate and be part of that audience listening to his story. So first things first, he leaves Troy with his ships, and then Poseidon starts acting a fool, starts making it really hard for him to get home. The first thing he does is he's washed up on the shore of the Lotus Eaters. The Lotus Eaters are natives in this land, and what they do is they make him eat a plant that is, or fruit, sorry, that is on this island. So he starts to do that with his men, and as you probably saw with Percy Jackson, whenever you were given that lotus flower, you eat it, and then you start to lose all sense of what's going on around you. You don't want to do anything. You're lethargic. You just want to lay down. You don't want to eat. You don't want to drink anything. You don't want to leave the island, that initial thought that you had. And so Odysseus has to drag his men off of this island because he does not eat the fruit. So he has to drag his men back to the ship, tie them up so that they cannot, or so that they're roused back into their reality. So he has to do this for the Lotus Eaters. That is the first challenge he faces. We're not going to read that part of the story just because it's short. It doesn't give us much in terms of what he's facing. So Lotus Eaters is his first stop. After that, he gets back with his men, and he washes up into the land of the Cyclops. So we saw the term Cyclops whenever we read Kronos and Uranus, when he threw his sons, the Cyclops, down into the underworld and chained them up. Now we're going to the land of the Cyclops, where these creatures are existing. So the Cyclops here, this creation of the Cyclops, a lot of them are considering Poseidon to be their creator, their father now. So I want you to keep that in mind. Poseidon, this creator of the Cyclops, as Odysseus and his men roll upon this land. Now, we are going to be dealing with one specific Cyclops, and his name is Polyphemus. This story, or this part of the Odyssey, is actually called the Cyclops. We are not going to call Polyphemus by the name the Cyclops. When you think of Cyclops as kind of like a species, like we are humans, so you wouldn't look at me and say, oh, there's that human, so we're not going to look at Polyphemus and call him the Cyclops. We have to call him Polyphemus. Okay. So as you're reading, circle any vocabulary words you might not know. Take the time to look up a definition of the word so you don't remain confused. Think about the hero's journey graphic organizer. Remember we did the little chart for Percy Jackson. Do we see Odysseus going on a mini journey in this section? What do you learn about Odysseus' character? Is he sympathetic? Do you like him? Do you dislike him? And then why for that? And then annotate any moments in the text where you see Odysseus acting as a hero. Maybe when he doesn't need smart, brave, or selfless. Those characteristics of an epic hero that we talked about in those Introduction to the Odyssey notes. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started with the Cyclops. The story is attached. It's a pretty long story, but it is attached. It's in 2 columns on each page. To Google Classroom, if you want to print it out, that is fine. If you want to look at it online, that is also fine. But I'm going to be going through this story with you right now, and you're going to be paying attention and going along with me. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So if you want to have a pen, pencil, if you're doing it on paper, do that. If you want to use any kind of annotation service like highlighting on your computer, you can also do that. But I do ask that you are paying attention as we go through this. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. The Cyclops. In his next adventure, Odysseus describes his encounter with the Cyclops named Polyphemus, Poseidon's one-eyed monster son. Polyphemus may represent the brute forces that any hero must overcome before he can reach home. Now Odysseus must rely on his special intelligence. Odysseus is the cleverest of the Greek heroes because he is guided by the goddess of wisdom, Athena. Remember I mentioned that his patron goddess, the goddess he's always praying to, is Athena, this goddess of wisdom. So Odysseus, therefore, has the intelligence that she is giving him. It is Odysseus' famed curiosity that leads him to the Cyclops' cave and that makes him insist on waiting for the barbaric giant. Odysseus is still speaking to the court of King Alcinous. So he is still talking to the court of the Phaeacians here. I'm telling his story. So remember, this is all happening in flashback. So it's going to happen in this first person point of view because he is telling what happened to him. So I want you to picture him just like in a nice little chair saying, hey guys, here's what happened to me. And he is telling us this story and we are listening and reading it. So we are on the island of the Cyclops now, and Odysseus and his men have walked into this cave that belongs to Polyphemus, and they're looking around. This is where the story is picking up. We lit a fire, burnt an offering, and took some cheese to eat, then sat in silence around the embers, waiting. When he came, Polyphemus, he had a load of dry boughs on his shoulder to stoke his fire at supper time. He dumped it with a great crash into the hollow cave, and we all scattered fast to the far wall. Then, over the broad cavern floor, he ushered the ewes he meant to milk, and the ewes are going to be this kind of sheep. He left his rams and he-goats in the yard outside, and swung high overhead the slab of solid rock to close the cave. 24 four-wheeled wagons with heavy wagon teams could not have stirred the tonnage of that rock from where he wedged it over the doorsill. So, Polyphemus comes into his cave. He's bringing his animals that he wants to milk. The male animals are staying outside, and he rolls this rock over the entrance. Now, picture Polyphemus as this huge Cyclops, and these men are just like teeny tiny puny men. So they are seeing this rock being slid across the door, and they're probably coming to the realization that we're not going to be able to move that. So our only way out of here is if Polyphemus moves this rock. Next, he took a seat and milked his bleeding ewes. A practiced job he made of it, giving each ewe her suckling, thickened his milk, then into curds and whey, sieved out the curds to drip in withy baskets, and poured the whey to stand in bowls, cooling until he drank it for his supper. When all these chores were done, he poked the fire, heaping on brushwood. In the glare he saw us. "Strangers," he said, "who are you? And where from? What brings you here by seaways of fair traffic? Or are you wandering rogues who cast your lives like dice and ravage other folk by sea?" So Polyphemus finally notices that Odysseus and his men are in his cave. Now I want you to consider what he was doing before he notices them. He's just doing his everyday chores. He's not doing anything wrong. He's not coming across as aggressive. So Polyphemus seems to be an okay Cyclops in this moment. And we know from the Cyclops, they're pretty decent. They helped out Zeus and Poseidon in throwing over Kronos. So I want you to keep that in mind as we get into Odysseus' reaction to this question. So he's basically asking them, what are you doing here? Who are you? How did you get here? We felt a pressure on our hearts in dread of that deep rumble and that mighty man. But all the same I spoke up in reply. "We are from Troy, blown off course by shifting gales in the great South Sea, homeward bound, but taking routes in ways uncommon, so the will of Zeus would have it. We served under Agamemnon. The whole world knows what city he laid waste, what armies he destroyed. It was our luck to come here. Here we stand, beholden for your help, or any gifts you give as custom is to honor strangers. We would entreat you, great sir, have care for the gods' courtesy. Zeus will avenge the unoffending guest." So, what Odysseus is saying here, he's saying, we came from Troy, we just won this battle, everyone knows we won it, it's like super popular, you probably know our name. And then he goes in to say that due to Greek culture, you should be hospitable right here. You should have this hospitality. You should say, "Come on in. I'll feed you. I'll give you something to drink. We'll hang out." Because he is expecting this Greek culture to be everywhere. At this point, we're not in Greece anymore. So we're in other places. Greek culture isn't truly as prominent, and so Odysseus comes into this cave expecting to be treated the same as he would be in Greece. And we're going to see that's not necessarily the case. And he basically threatens Polyphemus here too. He says, Zeus will avenge the unoffending guest. So what he is saying, if you do anything wrong to us, Zeus is going to avenge our death. So he is going to take revenge on you because you did something wrong to us. So we're going to see how Polyphemus reacts to that. He answered this from his brute chest, unmoved. "You are a ninny, or else you come from the other end of nowhere, telling me mind the gods. We Cyclops care not a whistle for your thundering Zeus, or all the gods in bliss. We have more force by far. I would not let you go for fear of Zeus, you or your friends, unless I had a whim to. So basically how Polyphemus responds is, ha! You think I'm going to listen to you because you're threatening me with a god? I don't care about the gods. He's pretty much saying the gods suck. I don't need to listen to them. I don't need to listen to your Zeus. You're not scaring me. Tell me, where is it, now where you left your ship around the point, or down the shore, I wonder? He thought he'd find out, but I saw through this and answered with a ready lie. My ship? Poseidon, Lord, who set the earth a tremble, broke it up on the rocks at your land's end. And wind from seaward served him, drove us there. We are survivors, these good men and I. Neither reply nor pity came from him, but in one stride he clutched at my companions and caught two in his hands like squirming puppies and beat their brains out, spattering the floor. So, Polyphemus asks Odysseus, where's your ship? We can probably assume that he was going to go destroy this ship so these men couldn't escape. But Odysseus, because remember he has this patron goddess of Athena, is quick-witted. He's pretty smart. And so he says, Poseidon caused us to wreck our ship. It bashed against the shore, and so we have no ship anymore. And so Polyphemus, kind of reassured by this, knows these men aren't going to escape, grabs two of Odysseus's men, beats their brains out, and then they're dead. So we have seen Polyphemus kind of change what he is doing. He started out as this kind of innocent person. He's just making his meal, soaking his fire, going about his daily chores, and now he has taken two of Odysseus's men and killed them. Then he dismembered them and made his meal, gaping and crunching like a mountain lion, everything, innards, flesh, and marrow bones. So basically what he's doing now is he beats their brains, and then he starts eating them. So he's crunching on bones, blood spewing everywhere. It's a disgusting image here. We cried aloud, lifting our hands to Zeus, powerless, looking on at this, appalled. But Polyphemus went on filling up his belly with man flesh and great gulps of whey, then lay down like a mast among his sheep. My heart beat high now at the chance of action, and drawing the sharp sword from my hip, I went along his flank to stab him where the midriff holds the liver. I had touched the spot when sudden fear stayed me. If I killed him, we perished there as well, for we could never move his ponderous doorway slab aside. So we were left to groan and wait for morning. So Polyphemus has his meal of these men, then just passes out. Odysseus has the chance to kill Polyphemus, but instead he goes, I probably shouldn't kill him because then we're stuck here forever and we'll never be able to get out. So he decides that he's going to have to probably wait until morning. So we were left to groan and wait for morning. When the young dawn with fingertips of rose lit up the world, take a pause there. What is that an example of? Ask yourself, when the young dawn with fingertips of rose lit up the world. So it can be an example of personification. So they're comparing this dawn to a human that has fingertips as she wakes up the world. The Cyclops built a fire and milked his handsome ewes, all in due order, putting the sucklings to the mothers. Then his chores being all dispatched, he caught another brace of men to make his breakfast, so he takes more men and kills more men. And whisked away the great door slab to let his sheep go through, but he behind reset the stone as one would cap a quiver. So he is resetting the stone, trapping Odysseus and his men inside of the cave. There was a din of whistling as the Cyclops rounded his flock to the higher ground, then stillness. And now I pondered how to hurt him worst. But if Athena granted what I prayed for, here are the means I thought would serve my turn. A club or staff lay there along the folden olive tree, felled green and left to season for Cyclops' hand. And it was like a lugero of 20 oars, brought in the beam a deep sea-going craft might carry. So long, so big around, it seemed. Now I chopped out the 6-foot section of this pole and set it down before my men, who scraped it, but then they had it smooth. I hewed again to make a stake with a pointed end. So basically what he's doing here is he's finding this huge tree, and he cuts it down to the size he needs, and his men start whittling away at it. And then Odysseus makes a sharp end. So now we have this huge weapon, basically, and we're going to see what he wants to do with this weapon to Polyphemus.